green section, if you will, is where we want to provide our inputs. And the khaki section is where, if we have correctly listed the given from any particular problem, it's going to calculate the answer for us.
Okay.
So I'll share my screen once again. And the point that I was ready to make was, once you have, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Once you have correctly filled out the green section and you look and you kind of believe you have a close answer or a correct answer, if you're curious like me, you're going to go down through the white section and the khaki section, click this to see what formulas were used, right?
Okay.
And you say, okay. So I know that as I click in the Z value, again, this is week 6 or week 7, it might dawn on me that the formula for finding the Z value is equal norms inverse, right? So I might just file that in the back of my head, right? As I click down through and I'm trying to understand how to solve for some of these other intermediate calculations, right? These are formulas that are pre-built into the spreadsheet because the university and the publisher thought enough of students that, no student is going to go in and memorize these formulas. They thought enough to add them as a workbook. Right, so it makes sense. So in theory, just remember that your responsibility is understanding the givens and filling the given section and interpreting the results, right? And after you've done that and everything else is extra, you might click down through some of these and say, let me just take a look and see what some of these formulas look like. Do they add up with what I've read in the chapter? Do they make sense, right? If you have the time.
Okay.
All right. So let's continue to move forward. I hate the other two classmates got dropped. So late policy. My late policy is 10% per day per assignment. So in other words, if you come in and you're late on 3 assignments for week 2, you're 2 days late for your assignment, for 3 assignments on week 2, you're actually essentially losing 10% per assignment per day. Right? I'm the type of professor that if students reach out to me before deadlines and have a real issue, right? I have a child that has the flu. I have a parent that I'm caring for that was hospitalized. There was a death in my family. We're talking realistic reasons. If students can reach out to me and do the responsible thing, reach out to me ahead of time, I have no problem with extending deadlines. I do have problems when students contact me the day after a deadline and say, well, I had a child that was in the hospital. Can you extend my deadline? That may be true. It may very well be true. And I'm empathetic to that. But if you don't do the responsible thing and alert me before your issue, then I can't extend that deadline. If you contact me and it's an hour before the deadline or a day after the deadline, there's nothing I can do to help you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to also point out one of the major, 2 major expectations that I have. Expectation number 1, I expect every student to go to the announcement section, follow the announcement section. Follow the announcement section, follow the announcement section, follow the announcement section. Have you had a chance to dig through, Dan, each of the announcements that's listed and digest all of the information that's there?
Yes, that's how I got a lot of the data points, the zip files that you mentioned. And I played around with them a little bit, but I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to get into each one. But yeah, I've been reading them as you post them. I actually have a Word doc just for announcements, and I copy and paste it, so it's all right there, so I don't have to log in and go through each one on the Loud Cloud.
Great. The announcements section will help you. Typically, at the beginning of every week, I post some type of informative announcement. Let's look at the week 2 announcement, histogram help. I've noticed as I've been grading the histogram DQ, there are quite a few students that say, I had no idea where to find data for the histogram. Where do I get the data for the histogram? Right, and because I've taught this class before and I've encountered that question before, one of the things that I provide is I provide data for students if they want to, if they can't find their own data to actually do the histogram on. Okay. Also, I've listed some web links to how to create a histogram using your Excel, Apple user, non-Apple user, YouTube videos to how to perform certain functions. So
yeah, that was extremely helpful for the histogram assignment.
Yes, and even down to there is a guidebook. We're using the covariance guidebook will be helpful on one of the problems in chapter 3. So I'll load in tips and clues in the announcement section each week. Now, every week is not going to be as thorough as week 2. Some weeks are only going to be comprised of guidebooks. But I've said that to say this. A lot of the help that I provide comes through the announcements. I can't say it enough. One other tip that I want to provide, for every assignment that you submit, once I grade it, if you score a perfect score, typically I don't attach a corrected assignment back to the grading book. If you are missing some points, or you don't do well on an assignment, go to that point in the grade book. I can't show you via the grade book here because they're sharing my screen because there are other students' grades that are there. But if you log into the grade book, let's just say on assignment, a chapter 2 assignment, click in the chapter 2 assignment drop box. You go in and click on your particular grade. You should be able to go in and download the attachment somewhere in that drop box that shows my corrections and the corrected solution on that particular problem. Not on the quizzes, on your homework assignment.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so the graded workbook, you're saying after you grade it, you have the attachment showing your notes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If you go into that particular drop box, unless you score a perfect score, typically if you score a perfect score, I'll give you the perfect score without showing something graded.
Okay.
All right. If you're missing 5% of that assignment, 10% of that assignment, and typically I will go in and show you what you missed, and I'll give you the actual answer along with the Excel command or Excel function used to solve that particular problem.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, and I've been sort of, I guess, taking mental notes. You've been active. I don't think I've shown you anything that you didn't know. I'll kind of open up the floor for questions at this point, Dan.
Yeah, and then thank you so much, Professor Wright, for doing this. This is very helpful. One question that I had was basically just maybe resources that you would recommend. So, like, for example, as I was working on this week's homework assignment last night, there were things that in the text can seem a little convoluted just when I'm reading, and I think it's just because it's new material for me with some of the Excel commands. What you pointed out today with the data sets really, really was helpful. I didn't realize that that right column in the textbook for the data sets with the, the Excel sections at the end of each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that at least from what you showed us here, that there was a data set that would correlate instead of using just the manual formulas.
Mm-hmm.
And so is there a way, like on some of the assignments, like for example with the small businesses, when we're taking a look at the healthcare premiums, is there like YouTube? I looked at the link of where the data was extracted from the small business healthcare survey in that problem, the 2.13. And I was looking on YouTube to see if maybe there was a tutorial video on how to create that type of chart. Like for example, I hope I'm making sense. Like the Pareto chart. Our text shows how to do it, but I was looking for videos on how to make that a little bit simpler because it helps me a lot more. Like when I looked at your histogram link for the YouTube tutorial, that put it all into perspective for me. So is there a resource that you would recommend that would have that for our assignments?
So I'm going to point you to the class roadmap and class warning, right? So without reading the top portion here, I'm going to go to I strongly suggest students not wait until the weekend to start working on homework in the class. Therefore, I suggest the following roadmap for passing this class. I'm going to answer your question, Dan, but I want to show you how I've given much thought to not only helping you, but students before you and after you. Start reading early in the week, right? Work homework assignment problems as you come to them. If you have trouble, review the announcements for the week to see if the professor has suggested a guidebook or template that helps. Usually starts in week 3. Review the appendix Excel guide section at the end of the chapter, or search online for help, right? Use the online help to familiarize yourself with Excel, such as YouTube or Google. Sign up for tutoring early if you're struggling, right? Mm-hmm. Be sure to get easy points on the DQs, right, and the classmates' responses. Monitor the announcements regularly for tips and clues. Again, I kind of go over some things. So to answer your question, you mentioned something specifically. You said, I sort of have problems wanting to look at maybe a Pareto chart, right? Mm-hmm. So if it were me, right, and let me move my close that tab and open another one. All right, I might go to YouTube and say, the book is kind of confusing. Can't get the professor. He hadn't responded to me in the last 2 hours, and I only have about 3 hours of work on homework for another hour, and I want this done, right? I might go in and how to in Excel, right? I just say I have Excel 2010, right?
Okay.
And so, wow. So right here are several examples. I may just start with a particular example, and I might watch and see if this is something this particular person. If it's something that makes sense, I'll come along and duplicate it. This guy sounds. One of the faults of Zoom is you can't hear in this particular application, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
I just mean in YouTube how to create a Pareto chart, right? And you can do the same for whatever that function is, right? Let's say how to find mean You notice how just by looking at YouTube or Googling it, right? You have now don't allow this, don't let this take the place of your normal reading and studying. This is just and you might not be able to always find something on YouTube. Some questions you might have to come to the professor, but always go back to the class roadmap. Start early. Use online help, right? Ask the professor for questions. Look at the end of the chapter. Look at the announcement section. So you that is in itself is 5 tools that you can use in any given chapter, any given week. Make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So there's no one individual way to do this, right? And don't feel like you're asking the professor too much. The only thing I ask of students is if you have a question, let's say you have a question on problem 5.10. Don't send me a question and say, I can't do 5.10. And that's listed in the announcement as well. Tell me, it's on this particular announcement right here. I expect students to be able to communicate what issue they're having with a particular problem. For instance, professor, in problem 3.xx, I'm having trouble with blank. This is where you're specific. I cannot do 3.xx is not a valid question. Okay? On problem 5.10, professor, on problem 5.10, I know how to find the mean, median, and mode, but I'm having trouble understanding how to find the z-score. Right? That's a good example. A bad example is, professor, I don't know what a z-score is and I don't know how to find it. I can't do problem or part C. Right? Those are bad examples.
Yeah.
Right? And if you come upon a request and you just don't understand, then I will take that and I will try to lead you into understanding what it is and how to solve it. I just want you to have, if you can't figure it out, have gone into the announcement section, have YouTube or Googled it, you put some time searching it. Now, when I say time, don't go spend 2 days trying to work any single problem. I don't want you to do that. Put forth time and effort. Look at multiple resources, and if you just can't get it, reach out to me and send me a question in the individual form or in whatever form that you use.
Okay. And I'm really seeing that there's. I'm not anticipating that we're going to have to do a whole lot of math. It's more just using, like you said earlier, using Excel.
You will be surprised. I've had students go the entire class and do nothing but math. They go in and program. You know how I showed you several different ways to complete a problem, right? You look at the mean. And one example, I went in and typed 12 plus 7 plus 9. I consider that math. Close parentheses divided by 7. Some students will go in and do the mathematical programming of the numbers the entire class. In my opinion, I think that's a long way.
Okay.
I think if you read and research, there are times, just like with the data analysis tool pack, you can use Excel commands and get to the heart of the answer quicker.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, Dan, is use what works for you, as long as you are commanding Excel to do something.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a relief because I thought it was algebra all over again.
You as you start seeing some of the equations in the book, you don't panic, because continue to read. If you don't understand the equations, try to. And sometimes you can. I have the math brain. I look at it in an equation, and I can translate that to how to put it in Excel. Use commanding it to do. Let's take, for instance, the mean. Right? If you look at the mean within our textbook, it will show the E symbol, which is summarization. It's going to say the summarization of data points, N1 through N10, divided by total number of N. I can see that formula and think it through in terms of typing out an Excel command.
Mm-hmm.
You might see that and say, well, what in the heck is this? Continue to read through the chapter, read through the examples, and if you just can't find it, at that point, go to the end of the chapter, find mean, and say, well, I don't understand that formula. Is there an Excel formula that I can use? And you will usually discover that there's more than one way to solve for problems.
Okay. All right. Well, that's really helpful.
Okay. What questions do you have for me?
I think that's all the major ones I had, and the other ones I had you answered already. So I think I'm pretty good to work on this, and definitely I'll be active with reaching out if I get.
Okay. Well, if you think of anything, feel free to send me an email or reach out to me in the individual form. I apologize for the technical difficulty that I had. Murphy's Law was definitely in effect tonight, but we got through it.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate you doing this for us. It's huge help for me.
All right, no problem. Well, I will leave you to it on tonight, Dan. Thank you for joining, and I will stop this session from recording.